Hi guys. So in this video, we're going to learn how to implement integration testing for the command handler in the CQRS architecture. So for that, I have created a sample application which demonstrates the CQRS architecture, and we have one functionality which is of create product, as you can see here. So I have created a create product command handler for which we are going to write an integration test as a part of this video. Let me open this command handler and we can see the functionality of it. As you can see, the functionality of this command handler is quite simple. It is basically creating a product, and after saving it in a database, it is returning back the product ID value to the caller. So we'll follow the step-by-step process how we can write an integration test for this much functionality. So let me add a test project in the solution first. After adding the test folder, I'm going to create a unit integration testing project, and I'm going to use the XUnit test framework for it. So let me create a folder. Let me create a project out of it. Integration test. Let me remove the unwanted file. After that, I'm going to follow the same folder structure which is there in the application project. So I'm going to create the same folder structure in our test project as well. So let me go ahead and create the folder structure, features, then product, then create product, and finally create product command and the test file. And let me make it to public, since unit test integration test project requires classes to be publicly accessible. After that, I'm going to create a constructor for it. And for our integration test to be run, we will be requiring a web application factory, which is a ASP.NET Core feature that provides us a testing environment to run our integration tests. And for that, we're going to add a web application factory. Let me add that private read-only web application factory. As you can see, it requires Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.MVC.Testing as a package to be installed in our projects. So let's go ahead and install that. And it requires an entry point, which will be our program file. And in the constructor, I'm going to instantiate that application factory. And now we are going to use web host builder to configure a testing environment that we're going to use for the integration testing. So builder use environment testing. And now after that, we're going to look what all the dependencies that we have to inject in create product command handler in order for handler to execute the functionality successfully. So let me go back into the create product command handler and see what all dependency it requires. So as we can see in the constructor, it requires product repository and unit of product repository. And if I go inside the product repository, you will going to see that it will require unit DB context as well. So first we're going to fetch the DB context object. How we're going to do that? So DB context object we're going to get from the application factory services, since we have injected a program file that is our startup file for our application. So we're going to get the DB context from this application factory. So let me application DB context. So it requires a persistence project reference to be added in our testing project, which we're going to do. And now we have created a DB context object. Next, we're going to create a repository and unit of work object as well. So let me go ahead with the product repository, new product repository, and it requires a DB context object needs to be passed. And next we're going to do the same for unit of work as well. Next, we're going to create an instantiation of our create product command handler as well. It requires a repository and unit of work as a dependency which we're going to pass now. So now we have instantiated all the required dependency that is required by the create product command handler in order to execute the handler and in order to create our product. So now we'll proceed with creating a test method that we're going to cover our use cases. So the first test method I'm going to write that it will going to create a product in the database for the valid request which we are going to pass to the command handler. So how I'm going to name the method? So first it will be a create product, and then it should then what we are expecting from that command handler. So it should returns valid product. Now so for this to be executed, we'll be needing a request that we need to pass to the create product command handler. So we'll go ahead and create a request using the library autofixture. So autofixture is a library that helps us in creating a dummy data that we do not have to create it manually. So I'm going to use the autofixture as well. As you can see, we have to install autofixture pet package for it. So first we're going to create the request. So as a first step, we have created a request that will be needed to pass to the create product command handler. So we have created a request here, and the next step we're going to call the handle method of the create product command handle, where product ID is equal to handler dot handle command, and here we're going to pass the default as a value. So here we are going to get a product ID after it is getting created in a database. So next what we're going to do, we're going to retrieve the same product from the database in order to validate whether that product has been created or not in the database. So dbcontext.products.single or default sing x dot id is equal to new product id. Since it is a sync, so we have to provide a weight as well. So here we are getting a product from our database. So the first step would be we would going to check that whether this product is returning is null or not. So that is something we're going to assert. And second, we're going to check whether that product ID we have created as a part of a request is present in database or not. So for that, we're going to use assert.prove, and here we're going to pass the product dot equals product ID. So we have completed our first method for our very first use case. So in this case, we are going to pass a valid valid request that needs to be created for a product, and we're going to fetch it that the same product from the database, and we're going to verify whether that product has been created or not. So let me go ahead and run this application. Let me put a debugger here and let me see how it behaves. As you can see, the application the test case has been failed, and what we can see that it is throwing an error of invalid operation exception. If I go ahead and see, so it is. Let me close this and let me check from here. So basically, it is asking for test of host.test.json file. So we have done something wrong here in our configuration. That is why it is not executing successfully. So we'll go and verify. So basically, if you can see, this is not our program file. So this program file has been taken from Microsoft.visualstudio.test+1.test. This is not the program file that we wanted, right? So we're going to remove this namespace from our file. So this program file should be our program file we are using in our API project, but we do not have an access for it since our program file is internal. So how are we going to access this program file in our unit test, in our integration test project? So for that, what we're going to do, we're going to in our API project, so in order to access the program file in our unit test project, first we have to mark this API project as a visible to our integration project. For that, we're going to put this in our CS project file, where we're going to include our integration test project. And the next step will be we have to add this API project in our integration test project. For that, I'm going to do add project reference, and there I'm going to allow API to be added in our integration test project, and now we should be able to access our program file. As you can see, we are able to access this program file. And now we are done with our configuration. No, one more setting is required. So basically we are using here environment as a testing. So we need to configure this in the program file as well. So for that, I'm going back into the program file, and in that program file, what I'm going to do, I'm going to mention if builder dot environment dot equals testing, else so for testing we're going to use the in-memory database, since we cannot use the database, real database, which is actually executing our application. So we cannot use for the testing. For the testing, we're going to use the in-memory database. For that, I'm going to use builder.services.add DB context, application DB context. For that, we're going to import the in-memory entity framework as a NuGet package. So let me go back into the API and add in-memory NuGet package. So we have to import this entity framework code in-memory NuGet package in our API project. And after that, we'll go back into our program file and we can use in-memory database. And there I have to provide the database name. So we can provide the name as test.db. So I guess we have done with our configuration. So we have configured our program file. So in case of testing environment, it will going to use the in-memory database, or else for the other environments, it will going to use the SQL Server, which is our primary database to store our data. And for the same, we have configured in our web host builder that for the testing, we are going to use the testing environment. So I guess we are done with the configuration that is required to execute our integration test. Now we'll go ahead and see whether our test is getting successful or not. As you can see, our test is still failing. So what we are getting here? So we are getting that the handler is throwing the invalid SQ exception. So why in a handler is throwing the invalid SQ exception? Let's see. As you can see, it is throwing an invalid SQ exception. So we can go back into our handler. And here we have created our SQ within a factory method. Let's go into the factory method and see. So here, as you can see, if the value of the SQ that we are providing is greater than 10, the length of that SQ is greater than 10, in that case it is throwing an invalid SQ exception. But we did not provide this value manually in our test method, right? So we're going to see, and we'll debug this, and we're going to see what actually this fixture is creating a data, so it doesn't get passed successfully from the handle method. So let me run the test again. So now we'll go ahead and see what are the values that this fixture is creating in that is failing our handle method. So we'll go ahead and see. So as you can see, it is creating an SQ value which is greater than that. That is why our test was failing, since our SQ should not be greater than 10, but here we can see it is greater than 10. So in that case, we have to provide some kind of customization in terms of fixture for this particular property. So it should not create a value that is greater than 10. So for that, what I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do some manipulation, some customization in the fixture in order to get the proper value of SQ. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to build air dot with x dot SQ and ABC dot. So now here we have provided the SQ value manually. Rest of the properties is being created by fixture automatically, but for the SQ value we have overridden that value and we have provided our custom value to it. So it should get, so now it should get past this handle method and we should be able to see the execution of this test method successfully. So let me debug this test method again. Now we can see the SQ value is ABC, which we have provided manually as a part of this particular code, and now it should get successful and create our product ID. But again, still failing. Let us see why. So we are getting this error. An error occurred while saving the entity column price currency. So why this is failing? Because let's investigate that as well. So let me go back to the product. Let me go back to the persistence and in the product configuration. As you can see, for the product currency, we have set the maximum value of 3, but as a part of fixture, it is creating a value which is greater than 3, since fixture do creates a value which is greater in length. So we have to provide a customized value for the currency as well in order to get this handle method passed. So what we're going to do, we're going to provide so now we have provided the currency value as well, which is the length below 3 or equal to 3. Now our handle method should get passed and we should be able to see the status of this method as a success. Let's see how it goes. See, now our handle method has been executed successfully and we can see the product has been created in an in-memory database, and we can see the product ID here, which is 38 and ended with 0B. And let's see whether we are getting the same product from our DB context as well or not. As you can see, we are getting the same product from our DB context as well. It means our product has been created in the in-memory database as well. So it should get passed now. But still it is failing. We are expecting it true, but it is actually false. Let's see why. Okay, so here we have done something wrong. So we are providing the product object directly and we are equating that project object with the GUID value, which is wrong. So we have to provide the product.id.value dot equals, since this is a our product ID is a value object, so we have to provide the ID dot value which is equal to product ID. Let's see now whether it gets successfully executed or not. And now we can see our test has been passed. So we have covered one use case where we are providing a valid product, valid request for the create product, and it is getting created in our in-memory database. So we can say our create product is functioning properly in case of positive use case. Now what we can do, what use case we can cover. So as a part of this method only, we have observed like if our SQ is greater than 10, it is not passing, and if our currency is greater than 3, the test is not passing. So we can create a use case for SQ as well. So we'll create one more test method which will validate for SQ. So let me create a method. So here we'll write create product should show invalid SQ exception. So here we are also going to follow the same process. We're going to create. Here we are purposely using create method so that our SQ is get create with a length greater than 10. And now we'll see. So here we are expecting a exception of invalid SQs. What we're going to assert a throw exception here. Invalid SQ exception passing await sync await handler command default. So here we are expecting that our handle should throw an exception of invalid SQ exception in case the value of SQ is greater than 10. So as we know, the fixture creates a greater length value by using the automation, right? So along with that, we can also validate whether the data has been inserted in our database or not. So how we can do that? So we can retrieve the product ad context dot products single attribute. Here we're going to fetch the value from the name since we are creating a product, so we do not have an ID for it. So we're going to fetch the data by using the product name. And we're going to, so first it should be null since the request is not valid, so it should not get the product should not get created in. So let's execute this test method and see whether it is getting executed successfully or not. So here we are expecting that in case of the SQ length is greater than 10, so our handle should throw an invalid SQ exception, and it should not get the product should not get created in a database context, and we can validate with this assert.null. So we should be returning a null value in case the product is not getting created in a database. So let's see whether our test is getting passed or not. So let's run both the tests. As you can see, both the tests have been passed successfully. So we have created here we have covered here two use cases for our create product handler. So let's do some manipulation in case if we want to fail this particular test method. So instead of suppose if some in future if some developer goes and instead of throwing the invalid SQ exception, it throws exceptions directly. So in that case, this particular unit test case should fail since we were expecting the invalid SQ exception from this integration test method. So let's execute this and verify whether it is failing or not. As you can see, our second integration test method has been failed. So it was expecting the invalid SQ exception, but actually the handle method throws the exception system.exception, which is not a valid scenario in case of that test case to be getting passed. So we'll go back again and we'll modify it to invalid SQ exception. So now both the test methods should again get passed successfully. See, now both the tests have been passed successfully. So guys, as a part of this video, I have covered the integration testing that we can create for a command handler, and I have created two use cases where I demonstrate how we can write the integration test method for our create product command handler. And one more thing I wanted to tell, like suppose in future if you want to create a test file for update product command handler or in case of delete product command handler, so we do not require these dependencies every time to be injected in each of the test files. So basically we can create one generic command handler as well where we can inject these dependencies and we can inherit that generic dependency in this product handler. So we shouldn't be injecting these dependencies in every of the test file we are creating. That is something we can see in a future video. So I hope you guys like this video, and if you guys like this video, do like and subscribe.